He thought it would be just another quiet night, a few last rides before heading home, maybe a couple of tips to cover tomorrow's gas. The streets of the city shimmered with the last lights of the bars closing, and the sound of rain tapping on the taxi roof felt almost hypnotic. But fate, it seems, loves to hide inside ordinary nights. Jose Daniel adjusted his mirror and sighed. 12 hours behind the wheel, and his body felt like it was made of stone. He had one rule: never take passengers who looked too drunk or too suspicious this late. Too many stories ended badly, but that night, he broke his own rule. At the corner of Galvez Avenue, beneath the flickering street lamp, a woman in a red dress stumbled into the street. Her heels clicked unevenly against the pavement. She looked lost, frightened, like someone running away from something. He slowed down, rolled the window halfway, and asked softly, "Do you need a ride, miss?" Her voice was trembling. "Please, just drive. Don't stop. He's following me." Before he could respond, she yanked open the door and climbed inside, slamming it shut behind her. That's when he saw the man. Tall, dark jacket, expression too calm for someone chasing. He stepped closer to the taxi, his smile rehearsed, almost charming. "I'm her friend," he said, leaning in. "She's had too much to drink. I'll take her home." But Jose saw something else in her reflection, a look of silent terror, her lips mouthing one word: no. He stepped out of the car, rain spilling across his shoulders. "Sir, she says she's fine. You should go." The man chuckled. "You don't want to get involved, brother." "I already am," Jose said, steady but firm. He pulled out his phone. "Unless you want me to call the police right now." The man's smile vanished. For a moment, everything went still, just the hum of the taxi engine and the rain. Then the stranger muttered something under his breath and backed away into the shadows. Jose climbed back into the driver's seat. "You okay?" he asked quietly. Her hands were shaking. "Yes, I think so." He didn't ask questions. He just started the car and drove. The woman didn't speak for a long time. The only sound was the rhythmic thump of the windshield wipers, slicing through the night. Her perfume filled the small space, sweet, elegant, like something from another world. She looked at him from the back seat. "You shouldn't have done that," she whispered. "Done what?" "Intervened. He could have hurt you." Jose smiled faintly. "If I hadn't, he would have hurt you." She lowered her gaze, her expression softening. "Most people would have just driven away." "I'm not most people." Silence settled again, thick but not uncomfortable. The city outside blurred by, the flicker of neon signs, the puddles reflecting traffic lights. He glanced at her through the mirror. Her eyes were heavy with exhaustion, her lipstick slightly smudged, and yet there was something dignified about her. When they reached her neighborhood, she finally spoke again. "How much do I owe you?" He shook his head. "Don't worry about it." "I have to pay you," she insisted, opening her purse, then froze. "My wallet." "It's gone." Jose smiled gently. "Then it's settled. You can pay me next time." She blinked, surprised. "You don't even know me." "True," he said. "But I know what it's like to be stranded." Something in his voice made her pause. She looked at him closely, as if trying to understand who this man really was. A taxi driver with kind eyes who didn't expect anything in return. He parked in front of a gated house. The lights were still on inside, spilling out through expensive curtains. For a moment, she hesitated to get out, as if walking through that door meant stepping back into whatever she had been running from. "Thank you," she said finally, her voice quiet but sincere. "It's nothing." "No," she insisted. "It's not nothing. You saved me tonight." He looked at her, his expression unreadable. "Maybe you saved me too," he said softly. "You made me remember that doing the right thing still matters." She smiled, just slightly, and stepped out of the car. The rain had stopped. Her red dress shimmered under the pale glow of the streetlights as she walked to the door, her heels clicking, like tiny echoes of fate. Before disappearing inside, she turned back one last time. "What's your name?" she asked. "Jose Daniel." "I'll remember that," she said. "I owe you one, Jose." The gate closed behind her, leaving him alone again in the silence of the city. He didn't know it yet, but that night, the night he stopped for a stranger, was the moment everything in his life began to change. Because sometimes destiny doesn't knock on your door. Sometimes it hails your taxi. It had been 3 long days since the night of the woman in red. For most people, it would have been just another story to tell, a wild encounter with a mysterious stranger. But for Jose Daniel, that night refused to fade. Every time he glanced at his passenger seat, he could still hear her trembling voice. "Please, just drive." He wondered if she was safe, if she remembered, if she was even real or just a dream disguised as danger. Then, on a quiet afternoon, fate decided to answer. He had just dropped off an elderly couple near the park when he heard a soft knock on his window. He turned, and there she was. Her hair was tied neatly this time, her eyes clear, her dress simple but elegant, pale beige with a small golden bracelet shining under the sun. "Good afternoon," she said with a small smile. "Do you remember me?" For a second, he forgot how to speak. "How could I forget?" "I was hoping to run into you again," she said, stepping closer. "I wanted to thank you properly for what you did that night." She extended an envelope toward him. He frowned. "What's this?" "Payment," she said. "For the ride, and for your courage." He looked inside and froze. It wasn't just cab fare. It was more money than he'd earn in a week. "I can't accept this," he said, pushing it back. "You don't owe me anything." "Please," she insisted gently. "Then consider it an advance. I'll be needing rides all week." He hesitated, then nodded. "All right, but only because you insist." Her lips curved into a faint smile, the kind that said thank you without words. As the taxi pulled away from the curb, the air inside felt different, softer, lighter. She watched the world pass through the window like a movie she wasn't part of anymore. "Rough week?" Jose asked carefully. She laughed once bitterly. "You could say that." She hesitated, then added quietly, "I found out my husband has a lover." The words hit the air like glass breaking. Jose said nothing at first. He knew that kind of pain, betrayal that burns deeper than fire but leaves you frozen. "I'm sorry," he said finally. "You don't have to be," she replied. "It's not your fault men lie." He glanced at her reflection in the rearview mirror, the same woman who had trembled in fear 3 nights ago now speaking with a strength that only comes from heartbreak. She stared out the window, voice distant. "I gave everything to that man, my loyalty, my love, my best years, and in return, I got secrets and excuses." "Maybe," Jose said softly, "you gave all that to the wrong man." Her eyes met his in the mirror. For a second, neither spoke. Then she smiled faintly. "You talk like someone who's been through it too." He chuckled under his breath. "Let's just say I've learned the hard way that not everyone who says, 'I love you,' means it." They shared a silence that wasn't empty. It was full of quiet understanding. 2 strangers bound by the invisible scars of betrayal. After a while, she leaned forward slightly. "Do you ever get tired of helping people?" He looked at her through the mirror. "No, maybe because helping others makes me forget how alone I am." That made her smile, a real smile this time. "You're not alone, Jose. You just haven't found the right passenger yet." He grinned, shaking his head. "That's not how taxis work." "Maybe it's how life works," she said softly. The taxi rolled to a stop near Santa Elena Park. The late afternoon light bathed everything in gold. She handed him another bill, smaller this time, and opened the door. "Thank you again," she said, "for everything." "Do you come here often?" he asked, surprising even himself. "I do now," she replied, stepping out. "It's quiet here. It helps me think." She paused, then turned back. "Same time tomorrow?" "Same time," he said. As she walked away, the wind caught her hair, and for a fleeting second she looked free, like someone starting over. He watched her disappear into the trees, his heart strangely heavy, as if saying goodbye to a chapter he didn't know he was part of. That night, while parking the taxi, Jose caught himself smiling. For the first time in a long while, he didn't feel invisible. He didn't know who she really was, what secrets she carried, or what storm was waiting behind her calm smile. But deep down, he knew one thing. That woman wasn't just another fare. She was a turning point. And when fate gives you a second encounter, it's rarely by accident. It had been a week since that golden afternoon in Santa Elena Park, yet Jose Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that something was changing, both around him and inside him. Every day, Alejandra would text him, "Same time?" Every day, he'd reply, "Same place." What began as a simple business arrangement soon turned into something gentler, deeper. She'd bring coffee, he'd bring stories from the road. She'd talk about life, he'd listen. Really listen. But on that 7th day, when she got into the car, her energy felt different. Her perfume was the same, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Everything all right?" Jose asked quietly. Alejandra nodded, then shook her head. "No, not really." She hesitated, fingers nervously tracing the edge of her purse. "There's something I have to tell you," she whispered. He turned slightly in his seat, sensing the weight of her tone. "Go on." She looked out the window as if trying to find courage in the blur of the passing world. "Jose, your wife, Andrea." His hands froze on the steering wheel. "What about her?" Alejandra exhaled slowly. "She's having an affair." For a moment, he thought he'd misheard. The hum of the engine filled the silence between them. "That's impossible," he said at last. "You must be mistaken." "I wish I were," she murmured. "But she's cheating on you, with my husband." The car jerked slightly as he hit the brakes too hard. The world outside seemed to spin. Neon lights, honking cars, voices blending into static. Alejandra didn't flinch. She just stared ahead, her voice steady but heavy. "I found out the same night you rescued me. I went out drinking because I caught them together." Jose's throat tightened. "Together? How do you know?" "I saw them, Jose," she said, her voice breaking for the first time. "At a hotel. And when you found me wandering that night, I was running from that moment." The truth hit him like cold rain. The dots began to connect. Andrea's late nights, the sudden excuses, the distant kisses. He wanted to deny it, to defend her, but deep down, something inside him cracked open. "Do you want proof?" Alejandra asked quietly. He couldn't speak. He just nodded. That night, she called him again. "Meet me outside the Gran Mirador Hotel," she said. "You'll see for yourself." He sat in his taxi for nearly an hour, staring at the building. Its windows glowed with soft golden light. His reflection in the windshield looked like a man half alive. Finally, Alejandra appeared. Her face was pale, her hands trembling slightly. She held up a small set of keys. "My investigator got these," she whispered. "They're in room 304. "Are you sure you want to do this?" he asked. "I need to know," she said. "And so do you." The hallway smelled of expensive perfume and betrayal. Every step they took echoed against the marble floor. When she turned the key and pushed open the door, the sight froze them both. Andrea, Paul, laughing, half-dressed, drinking wine that wasn't theirs. The laughter died the moment they noticed the open door. "Andrea?" Jose's voice was barely a whisper. Her glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the floor. "Jose, this isn't what it looks like," she stammered. "Then what is it?" he demanded. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks exactly like what it is." Paul stepped forward, smirking. "Relax, my friend. Adults make mistakes." "Friend?" Jose repeated, his voice shaking. "You slept with my wife." Alejandra's eyes burned with rage. "And you betrayed me." The room erupted, 4 voices colliding, 4 hearts breaking. Andrea shouted, "I fell in love with him, Jose. I couldn't help it." Jose stepped back, stunned. "You fell in love with a lie." Paul crossed his arms. "Don't act so innocent. You barely made enough to live on. She wanted more." Jose clenched his fists. "And you think money makes you a man?" Alejandra's voice cut through them all. "No, Paul, it makes you a coward." The silence that followed felt like thunder before the storm. Andrea reached for Jose's hand, tears streaming down her face. "Please forgive me. We can start over." He pulled away. His voice was calm, but his eyes, they were done. "You already started over. Just not with me." He turned to Alejandra. She was crying quietly, but when their eyes met, there was something else. Respect. Understanding. They walked out together, leaving the 2 betrayers in their golden prison of guilt. Outside, the city felt different. Quieter. Heavier. "Thank you," Alejandra said softly. "You didn't deserve to see that." "No," Jose replied, staring at the night sky, "but I needed to." They stood there for a moment, strangers once again, bound not by fate this time, but by pain. Alejandra finally whispered, "Maybe betrayal isn't the end of love. Maybe it's the beginning of truth." Jose nodded slowly. "Or maybe it's the test that shows who we really are." The taxi lights reflected in their eyes as he opened the door for her. "Where to?" he asked gently. "Anywhere but here," she said. And with that, 2 broken hearts drove off into the night, not realizing that this painful revelation was only the start of something neither of them could have imagined. Because sometimes, when the truth breaks everything apart, it's just clearing the space for something real to begin. 2 months had passed since the night that changed everything. The memories still hurt, but the pain had softened, like a bruise fading under sunlight. Jose Daniel no longer waited for apologies that would never come. He worked double shifts, saved what he could, and told himself that survival was a kind of victory. Yet on some quiet nights when the city lights blurred through his windshield, he still thought of her. The woman who shared his heartbreak, the woman who had looked at him with understanding instead of pity. Alejandra. He hadn't seen her since that night at the hotel. They'd both agreed to take time to heal. But fate, apparently, wasn't done weaving their lives together. It happened on an ordinary morning, just as Jose was refueling his taxi. A familiar voice called out behind him, "Do you give driving lessons now, or do I have to apply for a private membership?" He turned. She was standing there in a pastel blue blouse, her hair tied up casually, sunglasses hiding the eyes he still remembered too well. "Alejandra," he said, smiling before he could stop himself. "You look happy." "I'm learning," she replied softly, "and I wanted to ask if you could teach me something else." He raised an eyebrow. "You want to learn to drive?" "Exactly. I never needed to before. I always had someone to drive me around, but maybe it's time I take the wheel of my own life." He laughed, a real, unguarded laugh that echoed in the morning air. "All right, but don't blame me if we both end up in the hospital." "Deal," she said, grinning. They started that same afternoon. The first lesson was chaos. She kept stalling the engine, grinding the gears, and apologizing between bursts of laughter. Jose tried to stay serious, but every time she looked at him with that half-embarrassed smile, he lost his composure. "Clutch, shift, accelerate, slowly," he instructed, watching her hands tremble on the steering wheel. "I'm trying," she said, biting her lip. "It's just sensitive." "So am I," he teased, and she burst into laughter. When she finally managed to drive a straight line for more than 10 seconds, she lifted her hands and cheered. The car immediately swerved. "Hands back on the wheel!" he yelled, laughing as she screamed and hit the brakes. They ended up parked crookedly on the roadside, laughing so hard that tears rolled down their faces. For the first time since their lives had fallen apart, it felt good to laugh, really laugh. Later, they sat on a park bench, sharing ice cream like 2 kids skipping work. The sunset painted everything in gold, and for a moment neither of them spoke. Alejandra broke the silence. "You know, I used to think love was supposed to feel grand, like fireworks, but now I think maybe it's just peace. Someone who makes the world feel safe." Jose looked at her, the corners of his mouth softening. "Peace sounds good. I've had enough fireworks to last a lifetime." She smiled faintly. "Do you still think about her?" He exhaled. "Sometimes, but not with anger anymore. I think pain stops controlling you the moment you stop feeding it." "That's wise," she said quietly. "Maybe you should teach that instead of driving." He laughed. "Maybe you should pay me extra for therapy." They stayed there until the streetlights came on, the sound of the city wrapping around them like a familiar melody. In the weeks that followed, their lessons became a ritual. Every Saturday, Alejandra would show up with fresh coffee and homemade pastries. Jose would tease her about her driving, and she'd tease him about his outdated playlists. What neither of them said aloud, but both felt deeply, was that something new was growing between them. Something fragile, like trust. One evening, after another near-perfect driving session, Alejandra parked the car, turned off the ignition, and whispered, "Thank you." "For what?" "For not giving up on me, when everyone else did." He turned toward her. "You think I'm helping you, but truth is, you're helping me more than you know." She looked at him for a long moment, her eyes shimmering with the kind of honesty that doesn't need words. Then she smiled. "You should be careful saying things like that, Jose. I might start believing you." "Maybe you should," he said softly. The air between them felt electric, not like the chaos of the past, but like something sacred being rebuilt from broken pieces. That night, when Jose returned home, he found himself staring at the old taxi license hanging on his wall. It was scratched and faded, but it reminded him of who he'd been, the man who once believed kindness could change the world. He smiled, realizing he still believed it. Because sometimes, even after betrayal, even after everything falls apart, life has a strange way of steering you exactly where you were meant to go. And for Jose Daniel, the road was leading him straight towards something real, something that didn't ask for perfection, only sincerity. Morning sunlight spilled through Alejandra's kitchen window like gold dust, catching the steam of fresh coffee. Jose Daniel leaned against the counter, his sleeves rolled up, watching her hum softly as she sliced fruit. Two broken souls, now quietly rebuilding a life together. No drama, no games, just two people who'd survived betrayal and found peace in the same scar. But peace never lasts long when the past refuses to stay buried. The knock came just as they sat down to breakfast. 3 sharp, familiar taps. Alejandra froze. Jose frowned, his heart tightening with an instinct he couldn't name. She opened the door, and there he was. Paul, perfectly dressed, perfectly smug, holding an envelope like it was a weapon. "Good morning, sweetheart," he said smoothly. "I believe we have unfinished business." Alejandra's voice was cold but steady. "You have no business here." He stepped inside anyway, brushing past her like he still owned the air she breathed. "I'm here for what's mine, half the house, half the company shares, half of everything you built, with my money." Jose stood. "She owes you nothing, Paul." Paul's grin sharpened. "Ah, the taxi driver. I see you've upgraded your charity work." Jose didn't move. "I'm warning you, leave her alone." Paul scoffed. "Or what? You'll quote poetry at me?" Alejandra slammed the envelope against his chest. "There. The divorce is finalized. You got your half already. The half of your own lies." He looked down at the papers, sneering. "You'll regret this. You think this cab driver can protect you?" Jose took a slow step forward. His voice was calm, almost gentle, the kind of calm that comes from a man who's already lost everything once and isn't afraid anymore. "You're right," he said. "I'm not rich, I'm not powerful, but I don't need to be either, because people like you fall by their own greed." Paul's smirk faded. Watch your mouth. Jose leaned closer. The thing about power, Paul, is that it only works until someone stops being afraid of you. For the first time, Paul stepped back. Alejandra crossed her arms. You should leave now before I call the police. Paul glared at both of them, then turned sharply toward the door. Enjoy your little fantasy. Let's see how long it lasts. The door slammed behind him. Silence lingered, thick, electric. Alejandra sank into the chair, trembling. He won't stop, Jose. He never does. He took her hands gently. He will. Because you're not alone anymore. She looked up at him. The steadiness in his eyes, the quiet strength that no storm could shake. And for the first time in years, she believed it. That evening, they walked together to the park where they'd first met again. The city lights shimmered across the lake like scattered fireflies. Alejandra whispered, "When I met you, I thought you were just a kind stranger. I never imagined you'd become this." Jose smiled softly. "What? Your driver?" "My home," she said. The word hit him like warmth spreading through his chest. He took a breath. "You know, sometimes I think the world gives us pain to make room for what's real. If I hadn't lost everything, I never would have found you." She smiled, brushing a tear away. "And if I hadn't fallen, you never would have caught me." They stood there for a moment, surrounded by the hum of crickets and distant laughter, and everything, the betrayal, the anger, the loss, felt like another lifetime. Then Alejandra pulled a small envelope from her purse and handed it to him. "What's this?" he asked. "Open it." Inside was a single sheet of paper, a job offer. Executive Transport Manager, Mendoza Group. He blinked. "Wait, this is your company now?" She nodded. "After the divorce, the court awarded me full ownership. I want you to run our new transport division. You'll be your own boss." Jose shook his head slowly. "I don't need a reward, Alejandra." "It's not a reward," she said, smiling through tears. "It's a partnership. You gave me back my faith in people. This is my way of saying thank you." He looked at her, his voice quiet. "And what if I already got my reward?" Her eyes met his. Warm, unguarded, alive. "Then maybe," she whispered, "we both did." They leaned closer, their foreheads touching, and in that stillness the world seemed to hold its breath. This wasn't the kind of love that explodes in fireworks. It was the kind that rebuilds quietly, brick by brick, heart by heart. The kind that doesn't ask for perfection, the kind that comes after the pain, the kind that stays. As they walked back to the car, Jose placed his hand over hers. "So," he said softly, smiling, "do I still get to drive you around?" Alejandra laughed, her eyes glistening. "Always, just don't charge me this time." "Deal." The taxi rolled away from the park under the glow of streetlights, two silhouettes against a city that had once tried to break them. But tonight they weren't broken anymore. They were whole, not because life had been kind, but because they had chosen to be kind anyway. And in that choice, they found the only reward that ever truly mattered. Love that expected nothing, yet gave everything.